All right, so let's talk about swarms. I got a picture this morning from somebody that said they had captured the quote first swarm of the season over the weekend. And while yes, we've been really warm, the conditions for bees to swarm or split are not there yet. We're not to that point. And so, people will argue quite frequently that bees can take honey and they can convert it into wax. So let's talk about what's needed for a colony of bees to split and to swarm. And it's all about abundance. So there has to be an abundance of bees in the hive, number one, so brood. There also has to be abundance of nectar to biomechanically convert into wax. And there has to be an abundance of warmth. So it's got to be warm enough and conducive enough for those bees to draw out the wax and to keep it malleable and build on that new colony that they're going to try to do. That split is going to take off and try to make a whole new hive. And so while it is possible for them to biomechanically convert honey, which is a basic sugar, into wax, honeybees will not do that. They won't. Honey is an emergency food. It is there as strictly an emergency. So they will not take something like honey and use it for something that should be used in a time of abundance. So it's not a behavior that's going to happen. So what are we seeing? What did that person find this weekend? They more than likely found a hive that had absconded or even just been displaced. We got a phone call this week from another tree company that was actively cutting down a tree. They found a very small cluster of bees in the trunk of the tree. We're going to go pick that up, I think, tomorrow and see what's left of it. But there's a really good chance that is a scenario in which that trunk hit the ground, it dislodged all the honey, the bees now are open, they're vulnerable, and so now they've got to find a new place to live. So they leave and they cluster somewhere. It looks like a traditional swarm, but again, we're seeing brood in very limited numbers in some of the cutouts and the things that we're doing, but we're right at the beginning of that. There's no way that bees in New Mexico right now are producing queen cells. And there hasn't been enough time, even if they started making queen cells, hasn't been enough time for those queens to actually develop and mature. There's no drones. So again, there's got to be an abundance of all of these resources in order for bees to truly, by definition, split and swarm. And so that's just not happening. Man, maybe, very, very possibly you've got some of that going on in Florida. But again, you'd really have to have a very interesting situation. Florida's been super cold going into the first part of February, back into January. Florida had iguanas falling out of trees. So it doesn't make any sense that, 30 days ago, the central part of Florida would have been warm enough and conducive enough for any of the abundant resources, drones, wax, nectar, temperature, all of the things that are needed. It doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of where swarming behavior comes in. We're starting to see brood patterns in New Mexico pick up. With that, we're still probably 30 to 45 days from seeing any kind of swarm cell develop, new queen cells. And then from that point, we're still probably 20 days before we start seeing anybody emerge. So in reality, you're talking at the earliest, the first part to middle part of March, at the earliest. I don't see it any other way than that. Right now we're in brood season. There's an abundance of pollen, and that's about it. There is not an abundance, if any, nectar coming in to the hives right now. It's very scarce and limited. So anyway, that's kind of the 2 cents on swarming and what it is, and when we here in New Mexico should expect to see some of those first swarms. I'm guessing, if I had to put a date on it, which is kind of fun to do, I'm going to say March 20th is going to be probably right in that neighborhood, give or take a week. Probably give a week. I just don't see it earlier than that. But let's say March 20th. Let's see where the prediction lands.